Hey guys, this is Janine from Pangolin Photo Safaris, and today I'm out here on the Chobe River for you in order to talk about all the different myths surrounding exposure compensation and why it is a good idea to have a variable exposure rather than having it fixed. If you do like our videos, please don't forget to subscribe and press the bell button just down below here in order to get notifications whenever there's new videos coming out. Exposure compensation is quite a touchy subject. I get a lot of guests that like to shoot on a fixed exposure. Let's say a -1/3, even -0.7. They always like to underexpose a little bit. Some people like their images a little bit brighter, and they hardly change it. They might have shot 15-20 years, but they will hardly ever touch their exposure compensation. Which is fine if you shoot in a studio environment where you always try and achieve neutral tones. However, if you shoot out here wildlife, then a lot of times your wildlife only takes up a small portion of your frame. And then you have to rather expose for that little portion of the frame than your background. A neutral exposure will not get you what you wanted. So at the moment I'm sitting here on the riverbank, and I can see to my left hand side we have the bright Chobe River with the bright blue sky. So the backgrounds are all very bright, and on the right hand side I have those beautiful jackalberry trees with those deep shadows coming in the late afternoon sun, and we have a few egrets fishing here. And if I would go on a neutral exposure, or let's say -1/3 for instance, yep, as I thought, I'm completely burning the bird. The bird looks way too bright, so much so that I cannot get my highlights back. How do I know? You'll see the blinkies in the back of your screen. If you want to learn more about blinkies, please check out Danielle's video on YouTube in order to figure out how to turn those on. So what do I need to do in order to get that white egret right? I'm going to start off on -1. And it looks a lot better for me, but I still find that the bird is extremely bright. I want some more detail in there. Yeah, look at this, with these shady backgrounds they turn completely black. How beautiful is that? That was now a full -3. That sounds extreme, but out here you often have to do that in order to get the desired shots. A neutral exposure wouldn't have gotten you there. And I know that a lot of times in digital photography we strive to preserve these highlights. Once we get those highlights burned, we struggle to get them back, which is the reason a lot of photographers have their camera permanently set slightly below 0. However, if we now shoot in a very dark environment, I would actually suggest to overexpose a bit. Dark environment as in our ISO is very high, because if you have to pull these shadows back up in post-production, you will see the noise a lot more in these shadows than if you overexposed and pull them down. So underexposing is not always the magical number in order to get the perfect shot. Talking about exposure further, what am I going to do if I have a beautiful bird now passing me in flight, the fish eagle just coming past here? If I'm on a -3 shooting into the bright sky, I will see nothing of the fish eagle. It will be completely underexposed. So now I need to quickly change it. Therefore, it is really important that you know where to change your exposure, and not just know it by looking it up somewhere on your camera, but actually blindly you need to be able to change your exposure while looking through the viewfinder. Please practice that. It will help you so much. And then number 2, it is irrelevant really in that moment where your exposure ends up. You don't have time to go and really do the fine-tuning here. All you know is you need to bump it up, so wherever your exposure compensation sits, give it just a little swirl. With me, it is the swirl of a finger on top here on the right hand side. So as I would turn around, I would quickly move my exposure up. Regardless where it ends, it will be in the right vicinity, and I will have a much easier time now to fix it in post-production as if it was completely off. So what is the rule of thumb for exposure compensation out here? If you have a really bright subject, in comparison to your background, you will need to underexpose. And if your subject is much darker than your background, you will need to overexpose. How much depends on how strong the contrast is between your subject and your background. It also depends on how big your subject is in your frame. If your subject is only a small portion of your frame, then your camera wants to expose on the background. So you have to compensate a lot for it. If your subject nearly fills your entire frame, your camera automatically exposes correctly on your subject, and you don't need to compensate so much anymore. It is a matter of practice. The more you do it, the better your feeling for it will become. But test it out. It's a lot of fun to play with your exposure compensation, and don't be fixated on one thing, on a minus 0.3 or plus 0.3. It will not get you the best results at all times. I hope this little trick helped you and exposure compensation became a little bit more clear to you. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to press the like button down here and let me know what you think. It's extremely interesting to talk about exposure. There's a lot of different opinions out there, and every artist has a different eye. So I would like to know what you guys think. Have a great day. Bye bye.